I don't think it would be entirely inaccurate to say that Honda's four-wheel off-road division has gone through something of a renaissance recently. It appears that gone are the days of introducing a new model that just squeaks by in terms of features and performance, then leaving that model nearly unchanged for decades. No, the new Honda is re-engaged and pushing hard. Last season they gave us the Talon X and the Talon R, two side-by-sides that both feature a heavy dose of Honda DNA, setting them apart from the rest of the sports side-by-side marketplace. The X is shorter with a bit less travel from the rear three-link suspension. It's also narrower at 64 inches, so it can be ridden on a wider variety of trails most commonly found on the East Coast and in Canada. The R model is longer, has more rear-end travel, and is wider for extra stability during high-speed wide-open riding more common on the West Coast. The basic chassis of the two models are nearly identical, as are their interiors, which showcase Honda's focus on both the driver and the passenger's experience inside the vehicle. From front to back, the Talon oozes build quality and attention to detail that could only come from a highly experienced and highly respected automobile manufacturer. I'm not gonna lie, after all this, I fully expected Honda's 2020 new model intro to be nothing more than a showcase for new graphics and genuine Honda accessories, but I could not have been more wrong. For 2020, Honda has blown the lid off their sports side-by-side lineup by showcasing two more new models, both four-seaters, and highlighting some aftermarket power upgrades. Further, they revealed three ATV models that have received some important and significant upgrades and a new special edition Pioneer model customers have been begging for. There's a lot of stuff to cover from Honda in 2020, so let's jump right in by taking a look at what's new in their ATV lineup, starting with the Rancher. The Rancher has always been sort of no frills, an entry-level workhorse for Honda, so to speak, focused much more on utility than recreation, so it's not surprising to see that the changes to the Rancher are far less exciting and much more functional than the other models. The two big talking points here are, number one, a new reverse actuation system that does away with the multiple steps previously required to go from forward to reverse and then back. A new lever is easy to reach with your finger, and most importantly, the system now allows you to go directly from first gear into reverse and back, something not previously doable on any Honda and something anyone who uses their ATV for things like plowing will greatly appreciate. The second update for the Rancher is a new Pro Connect rack system that allows for easy installation and removal of accessories, and it's much in line with what's available from the competition. When we move over to the Foreman, we get a bit more exciting news. For 2020, the Foreman line gets a larger displacement 518cc engine that sees a boost in low-end and mid-range torque. I'm just going to say this out loud right now. Anytime Honda adds more power, that's a real good thing. All Foreman models get the new reverse and rack system found on the Rancher, and the Foreman base model gets the headlight previously only available on the Foreman Rubicon. The Foreman Rubicon, again, gets the racks and reverse system as well as the 518cc motor, but for 2020, it also gets a bit of a facelift with a new grille and bumper combo. Both Foreman models now feature a front-mounted under-rack waterproof storage bin that is accessible to the driver from the cockpit, though obviously not when the racks are loaded. The only news for Pioneer owners is something they've actually been asking for. The limited edition model will now be available in both 5-seat and 3-seat configurations instead of just the 5-seat from last season. Now switching gears to the sports side-by-side division, this is where the really big and most exciting news comes from, and again, it comes in not just one, but two distinct flavors. First up is the new Talon 1000 X4. It's based on the Talon 1000 X 2-seat model and utilizes the same front and rear suspension setups. In fact, the entire front and rear sections of the vehicle are identical to the two-seater. An extra 28.8-inch section has been added to the chassis between the front and rear clips to make room for rear seating, but the seating in the rear is not your typical four-seater sports side-by-side stuff. Like they did when designing the two-seat Talon, Honda engineers took a lot of time to consider just how passengers fit inside a side-by-side when they designed the four-seat model. They determined that rear passengers would be more comfortable with more stadium-style seating, so the rear seats on the X4 Talon sit higher than the front to give the backseat passengers a better view of the trail. The rear seats also sit closer together. This gives the rear seat passengers the ability to see not only above but also in between the front occupants. It's a smart layout that has the added benefit of additional legroom for rear seat passengers, making the rear of the X4 Talon one of the most comfortable side-by-side back seats in the business. The rest of the Talon 1000 X4 is standard Talon stuff. 15 inches of travel front and rear damped by a set of Fox Podium 2.0s up front and 2.5s in the rear. The second four-seat Talon model Honda unveiled for 2020 really caught me off guard. It's something that just wasn't even on my radar when I walked into the presentation. For the 2020 model year, Honda is partnered with both Fox and Bosch to bring us the Talon 1000 X4 Fox Live Valve Edition. Now, if you're thinking, hey, I've seen this somewhere else before, you're thinking exactly what I was thinking. Fox Live Valve suspension uses upwards of 8 sensors located all over the vehicle to monitor almost every aspect of the vehicle and how it's being driven. This information is processed through a Bosch programmed control unit that adjusts each shock individually in a matter of milliseconds to best suit whatever driving scenario the vehicle is currently in, based on which of the two modes selected via dash-mounted switch the driver chose. If you're accelerating, it stiffens the rear shocks. If you're braking, it stiffens the front shocks. If you're turning left, it stiffens both of the right-hand shocks, the front more than the rear. And if you're jumping, it knows this and will stiffen all 4 shocks to maximum to help avoid bottoming. But these are just a few of the scenarios. The live valve system is constantly adjusting the shocks, and if you're wondering if this type of technology is just a gimmick or if it's actually worthwhile, let me tell you right now, this is not a gimmick. I'm sure you, like me, are drawing an immediate parallel to Polaris's dynamic system, and while they are very similar, there is one thing that sets the dynamic system apart from the live valve system found on the Talon. Dynamics uses a Polaris-designed and programmed control unit. The Talon's live valve system uses a controller programmed by Bosch. Is one better than the other? Only time will tell. Two other notable differences between the base X4 and the live valve edition are first and most obviously the Fox orange chassis and roll cage found on the live valve edition. It does need to be said though, this is not just the roll cage. The entire chassis and all chassis components have been coated in Honda's proprietary dipping and powder coating process. To say it looks rad would be a gross understatement. The final difference is the live valve model includes Honda's new launch control system, which is actuated by a combination of holding a dash switch, holding the levers, and holding the brake. It's all in the manual if you need to know how to use it. What's important is that it actually works. After the sheets were pulled off both the Talon X4 models, I assumed the news for 2020 was over. But Honda had one more Talon-related item to show us, and it may just be the biggest news of all. Aftermarket Honda performance supplier Jackson Racing has developed a fully integrated and bolt-on turbo kit for any Talon model that boosts power by a claimed 60%. My math says that bumps the Talon's horsepower output to somewhere right around 170 ponies, which is more than respectable, and I can say from experience, it wakes the Talon up in a big way. Jackson Racing is known in Honda automotive circles as the go-to place for Honda performance parts because they think bigger than just adding more horsepower. They're all about creating performance parts that integrate seamlessly into the vehicle on all levels. In the case of the Talon, the Jackson Racing Turbo Kit includes an ECU that changes not just the engine mapping, but also optimizes all the auto shift points on the DC2 transmission to work more efficiently with the increased horsepower. After spending a bit of time going back and forth between a stock Talon and a Jackson Racing turbo-equipped Talon, I can say absolutely the difference is drastic. It pulls harder everywhere in its power curve, but the mid-range hit is explosive. I found I preferred using the manual shift mode, but most of the Honda engineers have said that after you get used to it, the auto DCT setting is actually the fastest. The final 2 points I think are important about the Jackson Turbo Kit are first, it doesn't void your Honda warranty, which I think should be an important concern for anybody buying a new Talon. And second, it's a 100% bolt-on kit. 0 modifications or cutting of any kind are necessary. Jackson Racing claims anyone who's mechanically inclined can install it themselves with typical hand tools in about 6 to 8 hours, and a shop who's done a few should be able to do it in under 4. On that same note, the Jackson kit is 100% removable, and the vehicle can be put back to stock with no negative side effects. So if you ever decide to sell your Talon, you can take the turbo kit off and keep it for your next one. So that's the big news from Honda for 2020. For the second year in a row, we've been given more than we either expected or asked for, and the idea that Honda is on a mission has been further solidified in my mind. It truly is refreshing to see Honda on such a roll, but of course, we're never completely satisfied, so the only question I think that remains to be answered is simply this: what's next?
It only takes 2 clicks to like and subscribe to our page, where you can check out a huge variety of ATV and side-by-side videos just like the one you watched.